Hey everybody, KC here. So there was a story in the Wall Street Journal the other day that kind of saddened me. It was about productivity paranoia, and that is the term that is used for employers, bosses, who worry a lot that people who are working at home or in remote locations are not being as productive or as honest as people who are working in the office. Now, there were a lot of companies, a lot of industries that expected everybody to be back in the office by now, that it would be back to the way things were. But there are a number of reasons that hasn't happened. In some industries, yes. In some companies, yes. But it's hardly universal. And some of this is because workers actually were able to demonstrate that they were able to be as productive and they really like working remotely. And some of it is because, quite frankly, COVID has not gone away. We're starting now. We're starting to see the stories about a resurgence in COVID. People who had it once or twice are getting it a third or fourth time. I can attest to that. I'm actually got a blowback case. So I had it, got rid of it, and got it almost 3 or 4 days later. So I'm on my second bout in about a 2-week period in isolation again. Doing just fine, a little stuffed up, but I'm just trying to be careful about not infecting other people. But what companies and bosses do sometimes when they're worried about this stuff is they kind of create a surveillance culture, right? They're checking on people's computers and they have software. Oh, how often do their laptops go to sleep? How often are they online? We got to be able to track all this stuff. It's sort of the online version of asking people in warehouses and stores to have wearable computers on them so every move can be tracked. God forbid they have to go to the bathroom for 5 minutes longer in a day than they're being allotted. Somehow that is chalked up to them being dishonest as opposed to maybe having an intestinal issue. But listen, it's such a complicated problem. We talk a lot here about creating a culture of caring within organizations, and I think that's really important. I think companies do have to figure out a way to nurture their employees, maybe to a greater degree than they have in the past, to understand that human beings are complicated, complex, nuanced beings, and the more you understand that and take that into account as you work with them, the better off the organization is going to be. And listen, but you got to hire the right people. You actually have to hire people who are going to care about the work that they do. I have to be honest. I've never understood people who don't care about the work they do. I don't understand it when people don't want to give their best effort, even in jobs they hate. If you have a job you hate, do your best to get out of it. But while you're doing it, I don't know. I think self-respect ought to make you work hard. So some of it is hiring, some of it is compensation, some of it is figuring out culture, things like that. We know that the pendulum has gone towards labor over the past couple of years, but the pendulum is going to go back in the other direction. Labor's been trying to take advantage of management for the last couple of years to get as much as they can. If the pendulum goes back, management's going to try and do the same thing to labor. And none of this solves the real problem, which is how do you create an organization in which everybody, from the top to the bottom, feels invested in the business, okay, and that the rewards of that investment are paid off in some way equally, regardless of where you are on the chain. I don't know how you do that. I fear we're living in a world where there's so much polarization, culturally, politically, and now it also affects the workplace, maybe more than ever before. But I think companies have to figure out a way to deal with that, address it, and figure out a way to create some sort of sustainable culture that is not impacted by the pendulum. Because the pendulum may go back and forth, right? But when it sounds the gong may be for the downfall of these organizations if they're not careful. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.